What's up, savvy expats? The Philippines is not considered one of the top chosen expat retirement destinations in Southeast Asia for no reason. From the crystal clear tropical beaches and the hospitable locals to the very affordable cost of living, the Philippines is a hard place to pass up on when the West becomes an increasingly less enticing place to live in. But despite this, there's still one common issue countless expats face living in the Philippines, whether they know it or not, and that is the skin tax. In short, this is where you as a foreigner get severely overcharged by a local, and this is often because foreigners are perceived as filthy rich by most locals. For example, let's say the average local price for a 10-minute taxi ride will cost you 250 pesos. You as a foreigner, if you're getting skin tax, may get charged double, even triple that amount. Now, that's just a mild case of what a skin tax in the Philippines may look like. On a more extreme, but just as common level, you can get skin tax on your rental unit. You can get skin tax working with visa agencies. You can get skin tax at immigration. You can get skin tax with shipping your items here. The list goes on and on, but I'm here to show you how you can avoid the skin tax, and not only that, but also avoid wasting hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in the long run moving and living in the Philippines. So, enough talk. Let's get straight into it. Alright, the first common and most detrimental skin tax to avoid in the Philippines is with the rental units here. Sad to say, but the reality is that you'll come across a lot of untrustworthy brokers out here. I know I have, and countless of my clients in the past have too. For full disclosure, I don't want to give Philippine real estate agents and brokers a bad rap whatsoever. Not all of them are going to try to hustle you, but to say that it isn't common here would be a lie. I've mentioned it in the past. There's two ways you'll commonly see brokers taking advantage of foreigners. First off, the bait and switch tactic. You go online to one of the terribly interfaced, sketchy looking property sites. I'm not gonna name names. You see a property that you like, you contact the broker, and you schedule a viewing. It comes time to meet the broker, and come to find out when you arrive at the property, it's a completely different unit that you reserved to view. Instead, this condo is probably twice the price and has little to offer. This is the all too common false marketing that's done by a lot of Philippine realtors, and when you go to ask them why they're showing you a different unit, they'll tell you that the unit you originally reserved to view is out of order or is completely sold. And the second way that brokers commonly skin tax foreigners here in the Philippines is by marking up the price of the unit for their own cut. As I said earlier, when some locals see foreigners out here in the Philippines, they immediately see cha-ching. Something as little as how you text a broker on chat can immediately signal to them, alright, this guy's not from here, so that means he has money. And in turn, I've seen it before, your condo can be marked up by an extra $200 to $300 per month. And so now you can see why I always say, without the proper guidance and reference as to how things work out here in the Philippines, you can end up easily wasting thousands of dollars in the long run down the drain without you as an expat even realizing. And you may ask, Evan, how do you even know that realtors are doing this? Look, as part of my network, I've worked with a lot of realtors in the past year. And whenever they'd find out that I'm handling expat clientele, they'd always pull me aside for that conversation, if you know what I mean. Sir Kevin, we can do markup on the condo and we'll split the commission, huh? Of course, I care about my expats, so right then and there, I sift through the realtors that I do work with. But just know, what you don't see behind the scenes with these deals are couple $100 markups on these condos because you are a foreigner. So how would you go about avoiding this? First off, I would stay off of Facebook Marketplace, and also, I'm a little bit iffy about that property site called Lamudi, if you've ever seen it as well. If you have any contacts in the Philippines, it's best that you work with them so that you can avoid getting overcharged when you can find a proper lease. With all that said, for those of you that don't want to go through the hassle of wasting unnecessary time and thousands of dollars because you don't have the know-hows and the proper contacts, applications are now open for our one-to-one expat relocation service. If you're planning on moving to the Philippines 1 to 4 months from now, our services can take care of the entire logistical process for you. From finding and securing your condo's lease without getting overcharged to handling your visa, banking, and healthcare matters. My goal for the expats that I do work with is to hold them by the hand, keeping them from wasting tons of time, effort, and headache when moving and transitioning to the Philippines, so that when they come here, it's as speedy as possible. That said, feel free to book a call with me in the link down below, and I'll see if we're a good fit to work together. Now, the second way to dodge getting overcharged in the Philippines is by avoiding the dollar mentality. This is a term that I coined because I and many expats alike had the dollar mentality syndrome when we first landed in the Philippines. And I mean, how can you not? You go from the States where you're paying 18 bucks for a Big Mac, $60 on gas, thousands of dollars on rent, to landing in peso Philippines where everything seems so cheap. And thus, the cheeky dollar mentality starts to infiltrate your mind. You begin to think, oh yeah, 57-to-1 exchange rate, that's nothing, take my cash. And it just seems like you can shell out money left and right because everything here seems so much cheaper than in the West. As much as possible, avoid this mentality because it makes you susceptible to getting overcharged and spending unnecessarily more than you need to. I know it's hard, but try to resist that urge of constantly needing to compare the prices in the States for certain items to the prices here in the Philippines. Because while it may seem so much cheaper here for you and I, coming from the States or from the West, bear in mind that it still may be more expensive than the average local rate, thus you're paying more than you really need to. So as best practice, avoid comparing prices to what you see in the West, but rather compare it to what you see here in the Philippines that the average local pays, whether it's higher or lower than the average rate. That should be the benchmark and reference point to determining good prices here in the Philippines. But another thing to keep in mind is the place in the Philippines that you're living in. If you're living in BGC, Makati, even Cebu City for that matter, in that case you can expect somewhere near Western prices, and so it's hard to compare it to provincial prices. Now, the third way to avoid getting skin tax in the Philippines is by cultivating a local support network. Think about it. You're moving to completely new soil halfway across the world with a fresh start, a new chapter, if you will, in a land that you're not entirely familiar with. With zero to no connections, it's difficult to get insight into the basic things you need to know for a smooth transition and retirement in the Philippines. Where to shop for your groceries, the best vendors to go to that won't overcharge you, different places to stay. You get the gist. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Here in the Philippines, it's all about what you know. As long as you have the right, and might I add, trustworthy contacts, navigating life here in the Philippines for the first couple of months upon your initial stay becomes a heck of a lot easier. Without this, you'll waste an ungodly amount of time and money through trial and error trying to navigate how the systems and the processes work here, which places to shop for your everyday needs, where to find rentals with a reasonable price, etc. So be sure to put on your list of priorities to cultivate a solid group of friends and a local support network. Speaking of building a support network, the fourth way to avoid getting overcharged in the Philippines is by simply traveling with a local. This is something that will help you beyond measure. Remember how I said that there's a local standard price and then there's the skin tax price for foreigners here in the Philippines? Well, by traveling with a local and them assisting you with negotiating for the best deals, that is one way you can bypass getting skin tax here. And still, along the process, you'll learn more about how items are priced out here in the Philippines. Because honestly speaking, it can be quite tricky to see how items are priced here in the Philippines as opposed to the West. In the West, you may think that electronics and gadgets are expensive, but actually here in the Philippines, because of importation, the electronics and gadgets like Apple is way more expensive. So whether it be your spouse, your brother and sister-in-law, a relative, a friend, it's always helpful to travel with a trustworthy local. And chances are, you traveling with a local will save you from getting lost, scammed, and taken advantage of in general. It'll be much easier for you to navigate the country with the local, and not to mention, if you're traveling around the provinces, they'll also be there to help you with translation. So by having a Filipino by your side, you can be assured that you're getting the most out of your experience here in the Philippines, you're avoiding the places that you shouldn't be going to, and you're overall having a smooth experience from somebody who knows their way around the country. Now, let's move on to the fifth way that foreigners commonly get overcharged in the Philippines. This is especially the case in terms of the transportation here. Sure, getting overcharged by an extra $4 to $6 by a taxi driver isn't going to put a major hole in your wallet. But I've seen a large number of expats who arrive in the country with zero reference as to how price points work here. Common consensus is that the cab driver should turn on the taxi meter. This is typically the case whenever a local enters a cab. But on the flip side of the coin, when they see a foreigner to pick up, then this is where they charge a set rate. And this isn't even the case with foreigners, but this is also applicable to Balikbayans and Philams. There's been occasions where, although I'm Filipino, they hear an accent and they'll charge me a set rate of 500 plus pesos for like a 5-minute taxi ride. That's roughly $10, whereas if the meter were to be used, it would cost no more than $2. And one way to mitigate the skin tax is by, number one, only ride in taxi cabs that will use the taxi meter. And the second and most preferable option for me is to just use Grab instead. This is essentially the Uber of Southeast Asia. And in this way, you can transparently see the ride fare price before you even book the Grab driver. It's easy, convenient, and completely transparent as far as prices are concerned. And so there you have it, Savvy Expats. That is a couple of tips as to how to avoid getting overcharged and skin tax as a foreigner here in the Philippines. As always, if you're planning on moving here and you need a bit of guidance, we always have our free 15-step Filipino arrival checklist in the link in the description down below. In this checklist, I run you through the initial steps that you need to take for the smoothest transition possible to the Philippines. From finding your rental to navigating the visa and banking processes, we cover this all completely in the guide. And so thank you for watching Savvy Expats. As always, it was a pleasure, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless.